What would you do if the person you trusted most in the world looked you in the eye and lied, not once, but in ways that unraveled everything you built together? For me, it started with a simple confession that cracked open a chasm of doubt, and by the end, I was staring at a life I barely recognized, shattered by betrayal, but somehow stronger for it. I'm Thomas, 44 years old, a lawyer specializing in corporate mergers, the kind of work that keeps me buried in contracts and conference calls from dawn till dusk. I've been married to Natalie for 17 years, and we have a beautiful daughter, Emily, who's 10 in the light of my world, sensitive, perceptive, with those big eyes that seem to catch every shift in the air around her. I've always been the steady one, the early riser who thrives on routine, black coffee at 6 a.m., a jog through the misty park near our suburban home, then off to the office where predictability is my armor. Loyal to a fault, emotionally fatigued from years of holding things together, but idealistic enough to believe that love could weather any storm. Our marriage wasn't perfect. Stagnation had crept in, emotional distance like a fog we both pretended wasn't there, subtle resentments buried under polite conversations, but I was deeply attached, committed to the family we'd created. Natalie, at 40, is an event planner, always buzzing with energy, restless and attention-seeking in ways that once drew me to her like a moth to flame. She's impulsive, a thrill-seeker who thrives on the chaos of coordinating weddings and corporate galas, but conflict-avoidant, slipping away from hard talks with a smile or a distraction. That evening, as I sat in our living room, the golden hue of the setting sun filtering through the sheer curtains, casting long shadows across the hardwood floor that still smelled faintly of the lemon polish from the weekend cleaning, I noticed her fidgeting with her phone. The air was cool, a draft sneaking in from the slightly ajar window, carrying the distant hum of neighborhood kids playing outside. Natalie paced slowly, her fingers tapping erratically on the screen, her usually poised posture slouched just a fraction, shoulders tense, a micro-twitch at the corner of her mouth as if suppressing a secret smile. I watched her from the couch, the soft fabric warm against my back from where I'd been sitting for hours reviewing case files, and a quiet unease stirred in my chest. Was it just work stress, I wondered, or something more? I rationalized it away, telling myself her late nights were part of the job, her occasional silences just exhaustion. But deep down, a whisper of doubt lingered, like the faint metallic taste of blood from biting my tongue too hard. And then she said she had a work party that night, nothing big, just networking, and as she kissed my cheek, her perfume lingering sharp and floral, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change forever. Psychologically, Thomas exhibits classic signs of denial, rationalizing Natalie's subtle behaviors, her fidgeting, tense posture, and secretive phone use, as benign, which stems from his conflict-averse nature and deep attachment to the family unit. This avoidance protects his idealistic view of marriage but sows seeds of emotional fatigue, common precursor to betrayal trauma. Natalie's micro-expressions, like the suppressed smile and erratic tapping, hint at her restless, thrill-seeking traits, driven by underlying impulsivity and a need for escape from stagnation. The sensory details, the cool draft, lemon polish scent, golden light, amplify immersion, mirroring Thomas's heightened awareness amid routine, a psychological mechanism to detect threats subconsciously. Interpersonally, the emotional distance in their 17-year marriage fosters resentment, where avoidance of conflict allows small issues to fester. This block illustrates how betrayal often begins not with overt acts but with ignored intuitions, leading to a buildup of suspicion. Thomas's inner thoughts reveal a cognitive dissonance, loyalty versus anxiety, setting up his journey from idealism to realism. Overall, it underscores the psychology of trust erosion, where perceptual biases delay recognition of red flags, ultimately paving the way for devastation and growth. Mornings in our house had always followed a rhythm I could count on, like the steady tick of the grandfather clock in the hallway that Natalie's parents had given us as a wedding gift. I'd wake at 5:45 a.m., the alarm's soft chime pulling me from sleep, and pad downstairs in my worn slippers, the cool tile of the kitchen floor sending a shiver up my legs as I ground beans for coffee. The aroma would fill the air, rich, earthy, with a hint of bitterness that mirrored my occasional moods lately. Emily would stumble down around 7, her hair tousled, rubbing her eyes, and I'd fix her oatmeal with sliced bananas, watching her small hands grip the spoon as she chatted about school projects. Natalie usually joined last, fresh from the shower, her wet hair leaving damp spots on her blouse, smelling of lavender shampoo, her energy already revving for the day ahead. Our days blended into a comfortable routine. I'd drop Emily at school on my way to the office, where stacks of legal documents awaited, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead and the constant clack of keyboards providing a white noise that drowned out personal worries. Evenings were family time, dinner around the oak table we bought during our honeymoon phase, conversations about work or Emily's drawings, the clink of forks against plates punctuating laughter. But lately, that harmony felt off-key. Natalie started mentioning more late nights at events, her phone buzzing more frequently during meals, screen angled just out of view. She'd glance at it, a quick smile flickering before she set it face down, her fingers drumming lightly on the tablecloth, a habit she had when distracted. One Tuesday, as rain pattered against the windows, turning the world outside into a blurry gray, she announced over breakfast that she had a networking party that evening with some colleagues. "It's nothing fancy, just drinks and chats to drum up business," she said, her voice casual, but her eyes darted to her coffee mug, avoiding mine. I nodded, stirring my own cup, the steam rising warm against my face, but a knot formed in my stomach. Why hadn't she mentioned it before? Emily looked up, perceptive as always, her brow furrowing slightly. "Will you be home for bedtime stories, Mom?" she asked, and Natalie ruffled her hair with a laugh that sounded a touch forced, her hand lingering a second too long. That night, I helped Emily with homework in the living room, the lamp's warm glow casting shadows on the walls adorned with family photos, us at the beach, Natalie's smile wide and genuine back then. The house felt quieter without her, the clocks ticked louder, the fridge humming in the background. She texted around 8 p.m. "Running late, don't wait up. Love you." I stared at the screen, the blue light harsh in the dim room, my thumb hovering over the reply. Was it just work, or was I imagining the secrecy? I justified it. Event planning was unpredictable, after all. But as I tucked Emily in, her small body curling under the blankets that smelled of fabric softener, a quiet worry gnawed at me. Laying in bed later, the sheets cool and empty beside me, I heard the front door creak open around midnight, her footsteps soft on the stairs. She slipped in, her perfume mixed with something unfamiliar, cigarette smoke? Wine? She kissed my forehead in the dark, murmuring apologies, but her body was tense, not relaxing into mine like usual. The next morning, she was brighter than ever, humming while making eggs, the sizzle filling the kitchen with a savory scent. But I noticed her phone was now password protected, something new. "Just for security," she said when I asked, her smile quick, eyes not quite meeting mine. Doubt crept like the chill from an open window, and I wondered if this was the start of something unraveling. Contrast Thomas's idealized view of marital routine with the emerging cracks in reality, highlighting how expectations of stability blind him to subtle betrayals. Thomas expects a predictable life, morning coffee rituals, family dinners, sensory comforts like the clock's tick and lavender scents. But reality intrudes through Natalie's evasive behaviors, such as angled phones and forced laughs. This mismatch fuels his internal conflict, where his trusting nature clashes with perceptual cues like her darting eyes and tense posture, revealing a denial mechanism rooted in emotional fatigue. Interpersonally, the marriage's stagnation manifests in avoided conflicts, where Thomas's conflict-averse personality meets Natalie's impulsivity, creating a breeding ground for resentment. Emily's perceptiveness adds layers, her furrowed brow mirroring unspoken tensions, underscoring how children absorb parental discord. Psychologically, Thomas's justifications, "Event planning is unpredictable," represent cognitive biases preserving his attachment, yet the unfamiliar sense and password changes signal reality's intrusion, eroding trust incrementally. This builds to emotional highs of routine comfort versus lows of gnawing doubt, teaching that ignored expectations lead to greater pain. Overall, it illustrates how betrayal often hides in plain sight, disguised as normalcy, pushing characters toward inevitable confrontation and growth. As the weeks rolled on, the subtle shifts in our home became harder to ignore, like cracks in a foundation you tell yourself are just settling. I'd come home from the office, briefcase heavy in my hand, the leather creaking as I set it down in the foyer, and find Natalie absorbed in her laptop, screen tilted away, her fingers flying across the keys with an intensity that wasn't there before. The house smelled of her quick dinners, pasta sauce simmering, garlic sharp in the air, but conversations felt clipped, her responses trailing off into silences filled only by the distant rumble of traffic outside our window. One afternoon, as sunlight slanted through the blinds in golden stripes across the carpet, I overheard her on the phone in the study. Her voice was low, laced with a giggle I hadn't heard in years, light, flirtatious, ending with a hushed, "Can't wait to see you." She hung up quickly when she saw me in the doorway, her cheeks flushing, a hand brushing back her hair in a nervous gesture. "Just a client," she said, smiling too brightly, her eyes flickering to the side. I nodded, but my chest tightened, the air in the room feeling thicker, warmer, like the prelude to a storm. That night, during dinner, Emily chattered about her art class, her small fingers sticky with sauce, but Natalie seemed distant, checking her watch repeatedly, her foot tapping under the table, a rhythmic thump against the leg that echoed my growing unease. I started paying attention to the little things, her wardrobe evolving with new outfits, silky blouses, heels she hadn't worn since our dating days, the click of them on the hardwood as she prepared for another work event. Text came at odd hours, her phone lighting up on the nightstand with a soft buzz, screen face down. Once, when she was in the shower, steam billowing from the bathroom door carrying the scent of her body wash, I glanced at it, a message preview. "Last night was amazing. Ethan." My heart pounded, a cold sweat breaking on my forehead, but I stepped back, rationalizing it as a colleague's name, perhaps a misread. Hope wrestled with fear inside me. I wanted to believe it was nothing, that our 17 years meant more than fleeting thrills. Emotional waves hit me hard, mornings of forced normalcy, kissing her goodbye as she left the day, her perfume lingering on my shirt, only to spend afternoons in my office staring at unread emails, mind racing with what ifs. I jogged in the evenings, pavement hard under my sneakers, sweat stinging my eyes, trying to outrun the suspicion, but it followed like a shadow. Natalie noticed my quietness, asking once over wine, the glass cool in my hand, the red liquid swirling as I hesitated. "Is everything okay?" Her tone was concerned, but her body language betrayed her, crossed arms, a slight lean away. I said yes, but inside, fear gnawed. Was this the emotional withdrawal I'd read about in late-night searches on my phone, screen glow harsh in the dark bedroom? Then came the weekend she said she needed to unwind with friends, packing an overnight bag with items that seemed too deliberate. Lingerie folded neatly, her favorite necklace. As she drove off, taillights fading into the twilight, the house felt emptier, the silence oppressive, broken only by Emily's questions. "Why does Mom seem happier when she's going out?" I hugged her, her hair soft against my cheek, smelling of strawberry shampoo, and wondered the same. That night, alone with a book I couldn't focus on, pages rough under my fingers, suspicion solidified into a quiet dread. What was she hiding? Initially, Thomas is in the denial stage, dismissing auditory cues like Natalie's flirtatious giggles and physical signs such as flushed cheeks as innocuous, preserving his idealistic trust. The escalation to observation, noting wardrobe changes, rhythmic foot taps, and message previews, represents a point of no return, where passive rationalization gives way to active internal conflict, fueling emotional turbulence of hope versus fear. Psychologically, this mirrors Betrayal's cognitive stages: pre-contemplation, ignoring cracks, to contemplation, late-night searches, amplified by sensory immersion like steam's warmth and sweat's sting, which heighten his hypervigilance. Interpersonally, Natalie's conflict-avoidant patterns, bright smiles masking evasion, clash with Thomas's reflective nature, deepening resentment from marital stagnation. Emily's innocent queries add emotional stakes, highlighting familial ripple effects. A critical turning point is the Ethan message, shifting suspicion from abstract to concrete, eroding denial irreparably. This leads to preparatory actions like jogging for clarity, symbolizing coping strategies amid highs of forced normalcy and lows of dread. Lessons emerge in recognizing how ignored stages compound pain, emphasizing early communication to avert no-return points, fostering Thomas's path to empowerment through painful growth. The suspicion had taken root, twisting in my gut like a vine, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. Mornings became rituals of quiet observation, watching Natalie sip her coffee, her lips pursed around the mug's rim, steam curling up, while her phone lay silent beside her, too silent, as if she'd learned to be careful. I'd leave for work, the car's engine humming steadily, but my mind raced, replaying fragments, that giggle, the message, her brighter demeanor after nights out. In the office, amid the shuffle of papers and the acrid smell of printer ink, I'd steal moments to think, moral dilemmas gnawing at me. Was invading her privacy a betrayal of my own values, or necessary self-protection? One evening, as dusk painted the sky in bruised purples, the air heavy with impending rain, I decided to act. Natalie was at another event, Emily asleep upstairs, her room lit by a nightlight's soft glow. The house creaked in the wind, and I sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, the screen's blue light casting shadows on my face. I logged into our shared cloud account, innocent enough, I told myself, just checking photos, and found deleted emails, but traces remained, reservations for dinners, hotel confirmations under her name. My hands trembled on the keyboard, keys clicking softly, heart hammering like a drum in my chest. One led to a photography studio site, Ethan, a freelance photographer, his bio touting adventurous shoots. A red herring? Or the piece fitting the puzzle? I drove to her office the next day, pretext of surprise lunch, the city's bustle, horns blaring, exhaust fumes thick, mirroring my inner chaos. She wasn't there. Her assistant said she was meeting a vendor. Anger simmered, mixed with disappointment, as I returned home, rain now pelting the windshield in sheets. That night, I checked her phone while she showered, water rushing in the background, steam seeping under the door. Password guessed, our anniversary, and there they were, texts with Ethan, affectionate, planning meetups. Can't stop thinking about our escape. One read. My vision blurred, the screen cold against my palm, a wave of nausea hitting me. But was it over? Deleted messages suggested guilt, perhaps an end. Weeks later, after a tearful confession I prompted, her sitting on the couch, knees drawn up, voice breaking in the dim lamplight, she admitted the affair, short, emotional and physical, an escape from our routine. Tears streamed down her face, mascara smudging, her hands wringing the throw pillow's fringe. Guilt poured out, she promised change. I forgave, sadness overwhelming, our reconciliation tentative, counseling sessions in a sterile office smelling of air freshener, holding hands in silence on the drive home. But suspicion lingered like a fog, her patterns returned subtly, secretive calls, emotional withdrawal. Then, a new clue, a business card in her purse for Lucas, an entrepreneur. Moral quandary renewed, I tracked her one afternoon, following her car through traffic, guilt-heavy as the overcast sky. She met him at a cafe, their laughter through the window, her hand on his arm, a gesture too intimate. Proof mounted, hidden emails, late nights. The air in my car felt stifling, windows fogging as I sat there, determination hardening amid the setback of false hope. As thunder rumbled overhead, I knew confrontation loomed, what I'd found couldn't be unseen. This gathering phase exposes Thomas's initial mistakes in passive observation, leading to lessons in proactive self-protection and boundary setting. His error in rationalizing early clues, deleted emails as benign, stems from trust bias, prolonging emotional pain, but teaches the value of addressing dilemmas head-on, transforming denial into determination. Psychologically, invading privacy highlights moral conflicts for his idealistic personality, yet yields lessons in recognizing betrayal patterns, like Natalie's guilt-fueled deletions. Red herrings, such as the possibly ended affair, mislead temporarily, underscoring the mistake of premature forgiveness without verification, fostering growth and discernment. Interpersonally, the confessions, tears, and promises reveal Natalie's impulsive cycles, her mistake in returning to thrill-seeking, teaching both about resentment's roots and stagnation. Sensory elements: rains pelting, steams seep, amplified tension, symbolizing clouded judgment, while Emily's absence emphasizes familial stakes. Pivotal mistakes, like tailing her to Lucas, risk escalation but impart lessons in empowerment. Proof over hope prevents gaslighting. Overall, this arc instructs that unlearned mistakes repeat cycles, but confrontation-born lessons enable independence, highlighting personal growth through painful accountability and emotional resilience. The weight of what I'd uncovered pressed on me like the humid air before a storm, thick and inescapable. That evening, as Natalie returned from her meeting, the front door clicking shut behind her, I waited in the living room. The lamp cast a warm but harsh light, illuminating dust motes dancing in the air, the couch's fabric worn from years of use. Emily was at a sleepover, the house unnaturally quiet save for the faint tick of the clock. Natalie entered, kicking off her heels with a sigh, her hair slightly disheveled, a faint scent of cologne, not mine, clinging to her clothes. "Long day," she murmured, avoiding my gaze, her fingers fidgeting with her necklace. I stood, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands. "We need to talk, Natalie." She froze, her eyes widening slightly, a micro flinch in her shoulders. "About what?" she asked, tone light but edged with defensiveness, crossing her arms as she leaned against the wall. The temperature in the room seemed to drop, a chill settling despite the summer warmth outside. "I've seen the emails, the meetings. First Ethan, now Lucas. How long has this been going on?" My words hung in the air, pauses stretching like taut wires. She gasped, her face paling, tears welling instantly. "Thomas, it's not what you think." But her voice cracked, body language betraying her, shoulders slumping, hands twisting together. I pressed on, anger bubbling beneath composure. "Don't lie. I followed you today. Saw you with him." Silence fell, heavy, broken only by her soft sobs. "The first time, with Ethan, it was a mistake, an escape. I felt trapped in our routine. But I ended it, I swear." Her words tumbled out, pauses filled with hitched breaths. "Then Lucas, he understood me, made me feel alive again. But I love you, Thomas. We can fix this." I paced, the carpet muffling my steps, heart racing, the room's shadows lengthening as twilight deepened. "Love? This is the second time. You confessed, we reconciled, and you went back to it." My voice rose, fists clenched, but I reined it in, moral insight flashing. This wasn't just hurt, it was a pattern. She tried gaslighting. "You're overreacting. It's emotional, not serious." But her tears undermined it, fear in her eyes as she reached for me. I stepped back. "No. This ends now." An unexpected twist, she admitted the second affair was longer, more involved, started during our reconciliation. "I couldn't stop," she whispered, collapsing onto the couch, face in hands. The confrontation peaked in raw dialogue. "Why, Natalie? After 17 years? Because we're stagnant. You with your routines, I need excitement." Pauses lingered, filled with unspoken resentments. Tears streamed down my face too, the salt sharp on my lips. But in that intensity, clarity emerged. I deserve better. As thunder cracked outside, rain starting to lash the windows, I said, "We're done. For Emily, we'll co-parent, but the marriage is over." She nodded through sobs, the room electric with finality. Thomas's anger and sadness fuel his steady confrontation, actions like pacing and clenched fists, channeling inner turmoil, while sensory cues, cologne scent, chilling air, heightened psychological tension. Natalie's fear and guilt manifest in sobs, defensive crosses of arms, and gaslighting attempts, her actions, fidgeting, collapsing, exposing impulsive patterns and conflict avoidance. Emotionally, the highs of accusatory peaks contrast with lows of tearful admissions, the twist of the affair's duration amplifying devastation. Interpersonally, dialogues with pauses underscore unmet needs, stagnation versus thrill, leading to actions like Thomas's boundary setting, a moral pivot from forgiveness to self-preservation. Here illustrates how emotions drive actions toward points of no return, with Thomas's composure amid chaos signaling empowerment. Lessons include recognizing patterns to break cycles, fostering growth through honest exposure, where vulnerability yields clarity and emotional closure amid the storm's literal and metaphorical rage. In the days following the confrontation, the house felt like a shell, echoes of our argument lingering in the quiet corners. I moved through routines mechanically, brewing coffee in the dim kitchen light, the bitter steam a stark reminder of solitude, dropping Emily off at school where her perceptive eyes searched mine, sensing the shift without words. "Is Mom okay?" she'd ask, her small hand in mine, warm and trusting, and I'd squeeze it, assuring her we'd all be fine, though my voice caught. Legally, as a lawyer, I handled the divorce papers myself, cold documents on my desk, ink drying under the fluorescent office glow, financial splits calculated with precision, house to her, shared custody, assets divided to minimize Emily's disruption. Natalie moved out temporarily to her sister's, her packing a somber affair, boxes stacked in the hallway, tape screeching as she sealed them, tears silent now, replaced by a detached resignation. We communicated via texts, terse and practical, the screen's glow harsh in my empty bed. The impact on Emily was my deepest ache. She grew quieter, drawings at school depicting fractured families, her teacher noting sensitivity to tension. We started family therapy, a neutral room smelling of chamomile tea, where Emily voiced fears, her voice small, leading to my decision for co-parenting boundaries. No overnights with partners yet, focus on stability. Personally, the aftermath was a storm of emotions, relief washing over me like cool rain after heat, clarity sharpening my thoughts. I set boundaries, no contact beyond necessities, blocking her number temporarily, the phone heavy in my hand. Anger faded to sadness, then resolve. I joined a support group, voices echoing in a community center's musty hall, sharing stories that mirrored mine, fostering confidence. New routines emerged, evening walks in the park, leaves crunching underfoot, crisp air filling my lungs, heart rate steadying as I embraced independence. Financially, it stung, alimony discussions and mediation, her event planning income fluctuating, but it forced growth, budgeting with purpose. Natalie showed remorse in emails, admitting her patterns, but I chose freedom over reconciliation, recognizing her thrill-seeking as unchangeable. As weeks turned to months, calm settled, mornings with Emily, her laughter returning over pancakes, the kitchen warm with butter's scent. I felt relief in solitude, breathing deeper, no longer walking on eggshells. The decision to prioritize myself, therapy sessions exploring my idealism's pitfalls, brought empowerment, a quiet strength in knowing I could rebuild. Natalie's impulsivity and stagnation-driven affairs caused the marriage's dissolution, affecting legal proceedings and emotional detachment, with Thomas's actions, filing papers, setting boundaries, as direct responses fostering independence. Emily's sensitivity causes heightened awareness, affecting therapy and co-parenting focus, mitigating long-term trauma. Psychologically, Thomas's sadness causes initial withdrawal but affects growth through support groups, transforming fatigue into confidence. Interpersonally, Natalie's guilt causes remorseful outreach, but Thomas's boundaries affect minimal contact, breaking resentment cycles. Sensory transitions, from argument echoes to crisp air, symbolize cause-effect shifts from chaos to calm. Consequences like financial strain cause pragmatic adaptations, affecting empowerment. This illustrates betrayal's cascading effects. Ignored causes amplify pain, but decisive actions yield positive outcomes, lessons in resilience, where personal decisions affect closure and new beginnings, underscoring growth from adversity. Months after the divorce finalized, I found myself in a new rhythm, one that felt authentically mine for the first time in years. The house, now just Emily's and my weekend haven, buzzed with fresh energy. I'd repainted the walls a soft blue, the scent of fresh latex lingering as sunlight streamed through open windows, birds chirping outside in the morning dew. Mornings started with yoga on the patio, the mat's texture grounding under my palms, breath steady as I stretched, releasing residual tension. Work at the firm intensified positively. I took on pro bono cases, the courtroom's polished wood and echoing voices reigniting my passion, colleagues noting my renewed focus. Socially, independence bloomed, dinners with old friends at cozy bistros, laughter over shared plates, wine glasses clinking, the warmth of connection without strings. I explored hobbies, photography, ironically, capturing cityscapes at dusk, the camera's shutter click satisfying, a reclaiming of what once hurt. Dating emerged tentatively, coffee meets with women who value depth, conversations flowing naturally under cafe awnings, rain pattering softly. Therapy continued, a sunlit office with plants trailing vines, where I unpacked idealism's blind spots, emerging with tools for healthier bonds. Emily thrived in the stability, alternating weeks, but united fronts at her soccer games, cheers mingling in the crisp fall air, her smiles wide as she scored. Natalie and I maintained cordiality, brief exchanges at pickups, her face showing lines of reflection, rumors of her seeking help for patterns. No bitterness lingered. I'd forgiven, not for her, but me, the weight lifted like shedding an old coat. For the first time in years, I felt like my life was truly mine, empowered, free to chase horizons without anchors of doubt. Mornings with coffee alone, steam rising in spirals, brought peace, a quiet affirmation of growth. I realized trust can break, but resilience rebuilds stronger, turning betrayal's ashes into fertile ground for a fuller life. Psychologically, Thomas's journey from fatigue to vitality illustrates resilience literature, sensory shifts, from dim confrontations to sunlit mornings, symbolizing enlightenment. Interpersonally, the story metacritiques marital stagnation's pitfalls, with characters embodying archetypes: the idealist husband, thrill-seeking wife, sensitive child, highlighting how patterns perpetuate unless disrupted. Emotionally, closure through forgiveness and hobbies emphasizes catharsis, lessons in boundary setting transcending the plot to advise audiences on coping. Cumulative insights reveal trust's fragility versus self-reliance strength, character growth from denial to independence underscoring narrative depth. Overall, the story metapositions as a realistic cautionary yet hopeful yarn, safe for reflection, inviting viewers to ponder their resilience amid life's betrayals. Summarizing the narrative arc through a comparative analysis structure, the story contrasts Thomas's initial loyal idealism with final empowered realism, illustrating betrayal's transformative power. Early ordinary life, rich with sensory routines like coffee aromas and family clinks, compares to later independent hobbies and sunlit peace, showing growth from stagnation. Natalie's restless impulsivity contrasts her guilt-ridden returns, her affairs with Ethan, escape, and Lucas, ambition, highlighting thrill-seeking versus marital commitment, leading to emotional detachment. Emily's perceptiveness adds comparative layers, her innocence versus adult discord emphasizing familial impacts. Key moments: suspicions build, proofs dilemmas, confrontations twists, compare expectations of fidelity to reality's erosion, with psychological realism and micro-expressions and inner doubts fostering believability. Forgiveness's temporary high contrasts renewed betrayal's low, culminating in divorce's consequences, legal splits, therapy, boundaries. Lessons compare ignored signs to learned vigilance, personal growth from sadness to confidence, empowerment through independence.